Hey guys, I'm Jet Tila and this is Ready Jet Cook, where I take the mystery out of Asian cuisine by showing you how to make some of my favorite dishes from shop to cook. But before I get into it, it's time to take a second and subscribe. Being from Los Angeles, the food truck capital of America, we're all about fusing cultures in our dishes. So what better dish to make than Korean tacos? Let me show you how. So what really makes this dish Korean is gochujang, which is a Korean pepper paste. It's sticky, sweet, and savory. You could substitute sambal or chili garlic sauce, but in my opinion, it's worth the find. I love short rib for the Korean taco because it braises down nice and tender without being dry. They come either boneless or bone-in. Grab the boneless to make your life easier. So Brussels sprouts are my personal spin to these Korean tacos. Their earthly sweetness pairs perfectly with the meat. They also cut the fattiness and the richness as well. These short rib tacos are awesome for a party. You can also make the ingredients ahead of time and store them in your fridge to put together the perfect late night or hair of the dog snack. The short ribs are the star of these tacos. Once they get going in the oven, you'll have a few hours to braise. So chef tip, make them a day or two ahead and they actually taste better. First thing we have to do is get these short ribs braising. And all braising means is to cook a tough piece of meat in a bit of liquid, slow and low, until it gets that kind of pull apart, tender deliciousness. Then we're gonna cut some vegetables up. I'm gonna show you how to make an awesome Korean gochujang taco sauce, and we'll put it all together into a delicious taco. So I'm starting with my mirepoix, which is celery, carrots, and onions, but in this case, I'm using shallots. With mirepoix, I just want you to rough chop. That means don't worry about any specific shape. Just cut it into kind of large-ish dice and keeping all the vegetables in a consistent size. Some of you might be worried about skins on shallots, but you're not eating them anyway. It's really kind of an extra step to be peeling them. These are gonna cook down over time and really marry their flavors into the braise. To build the taco, I'm cutting the onion into small dice and I'm shaving the Brussels sprouts into thin strips. So people have always asked me, how are you so fast with the knife? Yo, it's just straight up lots of practice and a lot of experience. I've probably run over 10,000 hours behind a knife, and that's the only way you're gonna get good. So for the actual short ribs, we have to do a little bit of prep first. So I'm cutting these short ribs down into smaller pieces because they'll braise a little faster. These are probably like 2 to 3 inch blocks. And we have to prep the meat before we sear. We're seasoning pretty generously with salt and pepper. And then you're gonna wanna give these a light coating with all-purpose flour. Well, what the flour is gonna do is help absorb some of the moisture off the meat, and it's gonna help get a nice brown crust. I'm just coating all sides of the short ribs very lightly, and then we're gonna fire up the pan. I'm gonna start with a high temperature oil and back that up with butter. The oil's gonna give me heat tolerance, meaning I can get this pan screaming hot, but the butter's gonna give me good flavor. You wanna make sure not to overcrowd the pan. It should look like every piece of beef could turn over without crowding the pan too much. The more pieces of meat you load in here, the cooler this pan gets. Because what you're doing here is actually frying the surface, you're browning the surface. The cooler this pan gets, the more steam you're creating, and that's not what we want. If your meat's browning a little slower, then just kind of take the time. Don't rush to turn these pieces of beef over. You know, I grew up in this neighborhood in LA, right in between Koreatown, Thai town, a little Mexican neighborhood, a Salvadorian neighborhood. So it was just really organic that we in LA created this kind of Korean mashup taco. This though is totally my version of it. I wanted to take like a really delicious street taco and marry it with some really great French technique. I feel it's the best of both worlds. I mean, a perfectly braised short rib married with a Korean salsa is kind of the perfect thing to eat to me. So beef is GBD, meaning golden brown and delicious. It's time to add the mirepoix to the pan. What the mirepoix is really doing is adding even more layers of flavor. The shallots, the carrots, the celery are really just kind of boosting flavor and also helping to kind of start pulling off the bits of the beef from the bottom of the pan. Short rib is a tough cut of meat. It feels like very rare steak. This is just trying to kind of seal in the flavors, so as it braises in the oven, it starts to break down. I'm not trying to cook this through here by any means. I'm really just trying to get a really beautiful brown coating and let the liquid finish the job in the oven. So we're moving on to the red wine part. I'm using a really big red wine, the kind you'd want to drink eating a really big steak, because those two flavors really complement. My favorite wine for braising is Cabernet or Merlot, because you really want a big, bold wine for big flavors. The acid in the wine is also going to break down that beef and create a really beautiful kind of sweet glaze. This is also called deglazing. Flash boiling the wine will really help to bring out all the bits that are stuck to the bottom of the pan, which are actually good things. We call that fond in French cuisine. Just think about that as the foundation of flavor. Now we're gonna add beef stock to kind of fortify even more beef flavor. Okay, come here. We gotta have a really quick chat. It's absolutely critical that you don't bring the level of liquid past the halfway mark, because you're not braising anymore, all right? So remember, liquid halfway means braising. Liquid over the meat means boiling, no bueno. So the last thing I'm gonna add before this goes in the oven to braise is what I call a bouquet garni. It's basically herbs bundled together to enforce even more flavors, and a classic bouquet is going to be bay leaf, thyme, and some parsley. So this entire deliciousness goes in the oven at about 325 for about 2 to 3 hours, and I'm gonna pull it out, this perfect, tender, delicious short rib. Since that takes a while, I've already made one ahead of time to show you how to make this taco. Oh man, it smells like the most amazing pot roast you've ever smelled. That's what it smells like, with a hint of wine, which gives you that kind of acidic note, and then the herbs kind of permeate through my nasal cavities. This is amazing. Like, I want to eat it right out of the pan, but I'm gonna have to like hold back and wait for the taco. So the beef is braised down, it's time to make our gochujang sauce. So what is gochujang? It's very simply a sticky, sweet, savory Korean chili paste. Now, I think most people hear chili paste, they think super spicy, but on the spice scale, this is probably like a 4 or a 5. You can sub it. You could get maybe like sambal olek or chili garlic sauce, but it's so worth it to buy. To that, I'm gonna add soy sauce, which gives me the saltiness, sugar for sweetness, and just a hint of sesame oil. These are really all the flavors of Korean barbecue punched up with some spice. Whisk that all together until it becomes kind of this pourable deliciousness, and that's it. It's really that simple to make your own Korean salsa. To put it all together, I'm gonna start by heating up a little pan. Corn tortillas, delicious, but even more delicious if you toast them. And I think a lot of people forget that little step. So this is just a dry pan. My Mexican aunt would call this a comal. So you just want something hot. It doesn't have to be oiled, but this really kind of sweetens up that corn that's in here. I'm just gonna toast a few of those up. And I'm not even really cooking for color. I just want to get a nice aroma off of these corn tortillas. I'm gonna keep this pan hot because I'm gonna cook the Brussels, onions, and the short ribs. Speaking of short ribs, it's time to pull some short ribs apart. So I'm gonna show you what tender really means. I don't think I'm gonna bother with a knife. I'm just gonna use my tongs and just smash these flat. Look at that. So all that connective tissue in short ribs turns into luscious unctuousness. It's like eating the most perfect barbecue. It's just the perfect amount of like natural gravy and fat and velvetiness. This is something special right here. So with the same pan that we toasted the tortillas, I'm just adding a little bit of oil. We're gonna do the Brussels and a little bit of the onions, because I've cut the onions so fine, I do want some raw onion flavor in there. And as the Brussels sprouts saute, they're gonna sweeten, they're gonna turn bright green, but I don't wanna kill them. Don't cook them so far that they turn soft and mushy. A little season. And now I'm gonna add my beef. And I like to add a little bit of the taco sauce to really season this taco meat. And this is gonna happen really fast because remember, the beef is already cooked. I just wanna put a little bit of cook on the onions and Brussels. There it is. Now I can start building tacos. So to put the tacos together, I'm just gonna grab those toasted tortillas. I'm an abundance guy, so I'm gonna do 3 tacos. And if it's just for you and your friends and your family, go big on these tacos. A little bit of onion. And then I'm gonna come over the top with a little more taco sauce. So here it is, my Korean short rib tacos. They're rich, delicious, and sure to be a hit. I hope you enjoyed coming to the market and cooking with me today. Don't forget to put your picks down below, and don't forget to subscribe. See you soon on another episode of Ready, Jet, Cook.